Ya se despedía. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. I hope your day and your week have been going very well so far. In ancient times, the oracle was a source of wisdom and fortune telling for the people. In modern times, he just gives out football picks. Welcome back to the NFL Oracle, guys. Week 7 of the NFL season is officially upon us. I can't believe we are already 7 weeks into this NFL season. The year is flying by. Really excited to go ahead and break down this week's slate, but more importantly, guys, I've got some really great picks to go ahead and share with you. But first, as always, people, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us. With a new day and a new week of NFL football comes some new opportunities to go ahead and make some money. This is part 1 of the now 2-part Oracle video. I mentioned this last week. We're now splitting the video into 2 parts. This is part 1, where we just cover straight/single bets, and then part 2 will cover parlays and teasers. So this is part 1. We have 15 straight bets to go ahead and share with you guys in today's video. So we're covering spreads, totals, money lines, those good things. And again, part 2 will cover parlays and teasers. All right, real quick, before we dive into this video's picks, a quick little recap of how we did with last video's picks. Jumping on over to GuyBostonSports.com, you can find all of our recaps and all of our previous picks posted here on the website over at GuyBostonSports.com. Just go over to sports picks and click on the person you're looking for, Ev, Tasso, or Trey. All of our picks are listed there on the website. Last week, an up and down week. We went 8-8 overall. We're now 44-44 on the season. So we're going along this 500 path. I know we can do better. We need to do better. But, you know, 8-8, we did have some winners. We had a little bit of a slow start. Thursday Night Football, the international game, some of those games early on kind of screwed us there. But we did have a nice recovery in the later games and ultimately had a pretty decent, okay week. But again, I think we can do better than 500. So let's go ahead and prove it to you guys here with a new slate of NFL picks. 15 picks coming your way right now. All right, guys, here we go. Our first pick and our first game we're actually covering in today's video is the Thursday Night Football game tonight. 8:15 p.m. kickoff between the Bengals and the Steelers in Cincinnati, Ohio. Our first pick for this Week 7 slate is the over in this Bengals-Steelers game, 43.5. We'll switch over to the outlier screen, kind of jumping back and forth between screens throughout the video. But starting off here with the over 43.5, which I'm grabbing for best odds available for me, -128 over on Novig. But as always, guys, I tell you each and every single week, shop around for the best sportsbook odds available to you, because what's best for me may not be what's best for you. You can definitely find some good value depending on what sports books you're using. Okay, so -128 over on Novig. This game feels a little strange to me. Steelers are 5.5-point favorites, yet the Bengals have not looked great. So I'm leaning Bengals here, believe it or not, because I do think that Cincinnati here, short week, at home, division rivalry game, a lot of people probably would be fading them in this spot. I think Cincinnati's not a bad play here, but I think the over is the better spot and probably the safer spot ultimately. If we look at the 2025 numbers, both of these teams have been over teams. The Steelers in their 5 games, 60% hit rate on this over of 43.5. Their last game out versus Cleveland and then versus the Patriots were the 2 times the under hit. And for the Bengals, obviously a big over team. 4 of their 6 games so far this year, the over has hit. So you have 2 teams where the over has been the more dominant cashing play in their games. You also have this little insight provided by Outlier. The over has hit in 8 of the Bengals' last 9 games at home in Cincinnati. So this is just a stadium where the over tends to hit more often than not. The last time the over failed to hit in Cincinnati was December 22nd of last year. Browns, Bengals, the total went to 30. But look at all these games. A lot of high-scoring affairs. At least 54 points in this Bengals stadium in 8 of their last 9 games. The over makes a lot of sense. This Bengals defense, one of the worst in the NFL. 3rd worst scoring defense in terms of points allowed per game. Bottom 5 in both rushing yards allowed and passing yards allowed per game. A lot of bad numbers. The Steelers' offense has been up and down. I'm still not quite sure what to make of them 5 games into the season. But I do think they're good enough, considering the matchup here with this Bengals defense, to score some points. They're averaging about 24 points per game this year, the Steelers are, and I do think they'll probably go somewhere around that 24-point average in this matchup versus the Bengals. The key here is how much will Cincinnati contribute to the total, and I honestly do think they'll contribute a healthy amount. Now, the Bengals' offensive numbers have been pretty bad, but remember, this is their second game with Joe Flacco as their starting quarterback, a quarterback who has a lot of experience against Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. These AFC North games are always kind of crazy. The Bengals last week, first start for Joe Flacco, they had 18 points against the Packers. They lost by 9. Wasn't the best effort, but I do think now Flacco, second half of that Packers game, you saw him connecting with Jamar Chase, connecting with T. Higgins a little bit. I think now having one game under his belt, I know it's a short week, which isn't ideal, but having that game under his belt against a pretty good Packers team, now at home against the Steelers team, I think the Bengals can score. And the Steelers defense has not been as dominant as it has been in years past. This is the key matchup I'm looking at here. The Steelers passing yards allowed. They're 27th in the NFL right now defensively, giving up 245 passing yards per game. Now, the Bengals passing offense from a numbers standpoint doesn't look great, but again, this is only the second start with Joe Flacco. I do think you saw in the second half of that Packers game him start to connect with the receivers, get a feel for the offense. He knows the Steelers pretty well, including the Steelers defense. I think Joe Flacco could go ahead and put some points on the board here. And so I do think Pittsburgh, they're the better team. I think they'll carry a lot of scoring. I do think the Steelers will ultimately win this game, although I do think it'll be very tight. I think this could be a 3-point win, which is why I think Bengals plus 5.5 is not a bad play. I think honestly a good play I'm not going to put on the play sheet, but to tease Bengals spread with the over, so take 7 points off, so make the Bengals plus 12.5 and then make the over 36.5. That's a really good alternate play if you guys don't want to go with the actual over, but the over at 43.5 to me feels like a really smart play. I do think the Steelers defense is not as strong as they've been in years past. I think the Bengals can at least score somewhere in the ballpark of 20 points in this game. And at that point, we just need Pittsburgh to get their average. 24-20 Steelers, very realistic outcome in this game, and that would cash the over. So that's our first play in this week's video. All right, guys, our second pick in this video. We're moving on to Sunday for the international game, 9:30 a.m. kickoff between the Rams and the Jaguars. I'm not overthinking this one. I'm going with the Rams here on the spread, minus 2.5, grabbing that minus 122 on Novig, best odds available to me. And look, the Jaguars have certainly been a fun story this year. They're 4-2. They are coming off a tough loss this past Sunday against the Seattle Seahawks, but they've been a fun story in general. The Rams, though, are a legit Super Bowl contender. As good as Jacksonville has been, I still have way too many question marks with this Jaguars team to trust them in this spot. Now, one big advantage here, the Jaguars know better than any team what it's like to travel international. The Jaguars, I believe, have played the most international games of any NFL franchise. So this is a team that's familiar with traveling across the pond overseas in Europe. I just don't know how much of an advantage that gives them. Because again, there's different teams, different times, different coaches. Just because the Jaguars as a franchise have traveled a lot overseas, I don't know how much of an advantage that gives Jacksonville in this spot. I have a lot of question marks still with the offense, and defensively they've been good, but they've been very reliant on turnovers. That's kind of been the key to their defense here. Their pass defense right now, though, 30th in the NFL in terms of passing yards allowed per game. That's just not good enough when you're facing off with a top 3 passing team, and Matt Stafford has been slinging that thing over the last several weeks. Jaguars have some impressive wins. I think it's a testament to the strength of this Jaguars team, the fact that the Rams are only 2.5-point favorites in this spot, despite the fact the Rams are 4-2 with some really solid wins of their own this year. But I do think ultimately I will trust Sean McVay, Matt Stafford, this Rams defense, all of those pieces a little bit more than the Jaguars. I think a 3-point win for the Rams here. Again, minus 122 odds over on Novig. It's pretty good value. I don't think it's talked enough about this Rams team. Their defense is really good. Top 3 scoring defense in the league. Very good against the pass. Good against the rush. 3rd in yards per play. They also forced a healthy amount of turnovers. A solid pass rush. Their defense being as strong as it is, mixed with an offense that could be a little bit better in terms of a scoring perspective, but they're the 3rd best passing offense in the NFL. All of those strengths combined, I think the Rams are the better squad. Even though the overseas component can change some things, the Rams are clearly the better squad here. They should go ahead and win this game. So I like the Rams minus 2.5 here as the second play in today's video. All right, guys, our third pick in today's video. Now moving on to the afternoon slate on Sunday, the 1 p.m. kickoff here. Our third pick is the New Orleans Saints at the Chicago Bears. And I am going with the Saints here plus 6.5 on the spread. So we'll jump over to the outlier screen to show you guys this pick. It's minus 135 best odds available to me over on Novig. And look, Chicago is definitely trending in the right direction. They're coming off a very strong Monday Night Football win against the Commanders, a really good win for them indeed. But I still have question marks with the Bears. They are still kind of getting used to the Ben Johnson offense, still trying to figure some stuff out. Now, they've won 3 straight games, and they've looked pretty impressive. They've got a couple of really tight wins over the Commanders and the Raiders, but a dominant win over the Cowboys. The thing is, they've only covered the spread of 6.5 points in one of their 5 games this year, and that was the Cowboys game. Even their last couple wins, they've been very tight, very narrow wins. I'm just not sure about this Bears defense entirely. It's not a terrible defense, but it's not a very good one this year either. The Bears defense, 27th in scoring. Now, they have been pretty good against the pass, 15th in terms of yards allowed per game through the air, but their run defense has left a lot to be desired. Now, they do force a lot of turnovers, but their pass rush has not been there. I just don't think defensively they're good enough to win a game by that much, even against a Saints team that I know a lot of people are down on. And admittedly, I hadn't watched a ton of Saints football prior to last week when they played my New England Patriots. Obviously, being in New England, being a Patriots fan, I watched the entirety of that game. And look, the Saints are not a good football team, but they are a frisky team. They've been pretty frisky in all their games, honestly, minus a couple of blowouts there versus like the Bills and the Seahawks. Besides that, though, they've been hanging around in all their games. It's been 1-score games in every game minus the Bills and the Seahawks games, and turn of them trailing. Obviously, they beat the Giants by more than 1 score. The point I'm trying to make is Seattle has been very competitive, even in losing efforts. Look at the Patriots game. Look at the Niners game. Look at the Cardinals game. They hung around in a lot of those games. Again, Buffalo and Seattle, different stories entirely, but the Seattle team has been good enough, and I have been impressed by Spencer Rattler. Again, he's not breaking any records. He's not making me convinced that he will be the franchise quarterback for the future in New Orleans, but he's been good enough offensively and defensively. The Saints on both sides, they're not good on either side, but they're just good enough to hang around in a game like this. 6.5, again, the Bears really don't have a lot of success covering that specific line this year. New Orleans 50-50 when it comes to covering plus 6.5. I think the Saints can hang around this one and keep it within a touchdown. I do think the Bears defense is weak enough where Spencer Rattler and the Saints offense should be able to get something going, especially because the Saints, they are ranked 19th in rushing yards per game. That's kind of been their strength, if you will. And that's where the Bears obviously are very weak defensively, is their run defense. So the Saints have also been protecting the football. Spencer Rattler, only 1 interception this year. He's been pretty efficient and pretty clean for the most part for the New Orleans Saints. So I'm not picking them to win this game. I think the Bears should win this one. But considering the Bears, their last 2 games, 1-point win, and that includes a 1-point win over a Raiders team that's not very good. That's probably similar level to the Saints team. I think New Orleans can keep this game close. Again, the only time Chicago's won by a decent amount is against the Cowboys, and their defense obviously is even worse than the Saints defense. So I think New Orleans hangs around here, keeps this within a touchdown, and cashes this underdog spread. All right, guys, our 4th pick in today's video, sticking with the 1 p.m. slate on Sunday, we have Panthers at Jets. And I'm going with the value play here, Carolina minus 1.5, which I am grabbing for plus 107. So a plus money play over on Novig. Now it is available on a number of different sports books for varying odds. FanDuel, you're getting it minus 105. Kalshi, Profit X, plus money. You're getting pretty good value on this play wherever you're going, but plus 107 on Novig, you absolutely can't beat that. Now, look, I don't want to spend this whole time just kind of crapping on an 0-6 Jets team. We know they're not good. We know they're winless. This is the worst team in the NFL. The Titans obviously have a pretty good case to make for it as well, but the Jets obviously are having another disaster season, typical for the New York Jets. What I want to talk about, though, briefly is the fact that the NFL needs to figure something out with these international travel games. If you want to do more international travel, you got to be fair to the teams. The Jets should definitely have a bye week here. A lot of these travel teams, not just the Jets, the Broncos should have a bye. I think if you're traveling overseas like that, you should get a bye week afterwards, like the Steelers did, like the Vikings did. Instead, the Jets losing, and I thought they played valiantly, I guess, against a pretty good Broncos team, kept the game tight. Now they got to come from overseas, travel back to New York, and granted, it's a home game, but travel back from overseas and immediately turn around and play a Panthers team that's won each of their last 2 games. And, they're not a great team by any means, but are starting to trend in the right direction, at least offensively. We saw Bryce Young and rookie Ted McMillan have some connection last week, so it's just a really tough spot for the Jets here. I mean, in general, they're not a good football team. Carolina's not a great team either, like I said, but ultimately, I do trust the Panthers a little bit more in this spot, coming off of back-to-back wins. They didn't have to just travel from overseas with jet lag and all that stuff. They get to now go ahead, and they are on the road, but they're on the road taking on a Jets team that is 0-6, not very good, plus money for minus 1.5. To me, just a value play at this point. The Panthers defense isn't great, but they have a pretty damn good run defense, which obviously is huge when playing the Jets. Offensively, the Jets are the worst passing team in the NFL, but they are a top 5 running offense. Not a very good matchup spot versus the Panthers team that has been very good at stopping the run. But again, this is not a great Panthers defense, but ultimately, again, it's a matter of which offense do I trust more in this spot. And honestly, I do trust Carolina a little bit more. They have a really good running attack right now with Rico Dowdle really just exploding onto the scene. Jets' run defense hasn't been great. Not a lot of good metrics for the Jets here. They don't really have a potent pass rush. I think Bryce Young and the Panthers, it'll be a tight one, but for plus 107 at minus 1.5, that's value I can't go ahead and pass up on when going up against an 0-6 Jets team. So I do like Carolina here a lot. All right, guys, next up, talking about not great teams, continuing on with the 1 p.m. window, we have the 1-5 Dolphins on the road in Cleveland, taking on the 1-5 Browns. And instead of trying to pick a side as to who's going to win or cover the spread in this spot, the smart play, in my opinion, is the under, which is what we're rocking with here in this game. Under 39.5 points, which I'm grabbing for minus 118. Again, Novig being the dominant sportsbook here in terms of giving us great value line. Like I said, I'm not going to try in the slightest to go ahead and figure out who's going to win this game because these are two bad teams that just keep getting seemingly worse. Now, I will say, obviously, Miami has cashed the over of 39.5 in every single one of their games this year, and the straight up over they've cashed in 5 of their 6 games. So a very heavy over team. However, you're playing against a very strong Browns defense that obviously has been able to hold some teams down this season. Now, from a scoring perspective, they are tied for 21st. The last few weeks, you've seen Pittsburgh score 23, the Vikings score 21, the Lions scored 34. So the last 3 weeks, teams have scored at least 21 points in all 3 games against the Browns. And we did see a team like Baltimore earlier in the year score 41 on them. So it's not impossible to score points here on the Browns, but the Dolphins offense struggles against bad defenses. What are they going to do against a pretty damn good one with, a really good run defense, a top 10 pass defense, really good, efficient, don't give up a lot of first downs, decent pass rush, a lot of great metrics. This is a Dolphins offense that is bottom 11 in both passing yards and rushing yards per game. I just don't really see where Miami's offense is going to get stuff done in this spot. I think there's going to be a low-scoring, ugly game. And on the flip side, the Dolphins' defense is not very good, but the Browns have, in my opinion, the worst offense in the NFL with a rookie quarterback. They've also had a brutal travel schedule. Again, talking about these teams that have had international games. They played internationally, lost, came home, played the Steelers. Or actually, they went to Pittsburgh, lost, and now have to come back to Cleveland to play the Dolphins. So no rest at all for the wicked, I guess. But the Browns just not looking good, guys. This offense stinks. Defensively, they're good, but this is kind of the same thing we saw happen last year where as the year goes on, the defense just kind of loses its luster. And it's a really good defense, but it's being wasted because their offense is so bad. They constantly have to be on the field. Two bad teams trending in the wrong direction. Despite the fact that Miami's offense is capable of scoring points, even if Miami does score, let's say 21 to 27 points, I don't know if Cleveland will be able to keep up with that scoring number, despite the fact that, yes, the Dolphins' defense is bad. The Browns don't have an offense to go ahead and take advantage of that. So I like the under 39.5 there. I think it's a pretty good value play. All right, guys, next up, I actually have 2 picks coming from this next game. We have an AFC West showdown between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs. I have 2 picks again coming from this game. The first pick being a spread pick. Surprising to most, I'm going with the Raiders here, plus 13.5 against Kansas City. Look, if you guys watched my Sunday Night Football picks video last week, I obviously was all over the Chiefs in that game. It was the perfect spot for Mahomes and company to go ahead and win in prime time. Referees, you can talk however you want about that, but they definitely had their hand involved in that one a little bit. I talked in that video about situational spots, and that game was a situational spot. The Lions were red hot. The public loved them. The Chiefs, a lot of the media coming off that Monday Night Football loss to the Jaguars, not a lot of people love them. They seem like an obvious situational spot play there at home. This time, there is a situational spot, but it's against the Chiefs with the Raiders. And how do I know this is a good situational spot? Well, just look at the line movement here. This spread opened at 9.5 back in August. Now, granted, that's August, so we have to go ahead and look at a more narrow view. So let's go ahead and take a look here at the line movement over the last several days. So this is from October 14th. We keep going back here a little bit. Now, we haven't seen too much. This is early last week. We'll keep scrolling down here. So you've seen some line movement upwards, right? So the line opened at 9.5. We're going to keep scrolling here a little bit. This is early October. So you saw it go from in October 7th, which is, 9 days ago? Less than 10 days ago, we saw the line go up from 9.5 to 10.5, and it kind of stood at 10.5 for quite some time until a couple days ago. Let's see, October 13th, roughly. Let's keep going down here, 10.5. October 12th. So 4 days ago. On NFL Sunday, we saw the line jump from 10.5 to 11.5, and now we've seen it come up to some markets 12.5. I've seen it in some places go as high as Chiefs minus 13.5. Now, that's not any crazy line movement, but you have seen the line change. You've seen some people start to put money on the Chiefs, and it's obvious. They just beat the Lions. They didn't just beat them. They beat them by 13 points. A dominant Sunday Night Football win. Everybody, they get Rashee Rice back this week. The public loves the Chiefs. You know, what's the scene from Elf? The children love the books. The public love the Chiefs. Everyone is on Kansas City right now. Everybody is on Kansas City right now. And I get it, and the Raiders are a bad football team, but each of the last 3 meetings between the Raiders and the Chiefs has been a one-score game. It's been decided by 7 points or fewer. They've been very tight battles, and those have been some pretty bad Raiders teams we're talking about here. Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew. I believe one of them might have been Garoppolo, or maybe it was another O'Connell game. We've had some pretty bad quarterbacks and some pretty bad Raiders teams hang around and give this Chiefs teams a fight. Now, granted, they look very good, some positive momentum. They get Rashee Rice back now. I get it, and I'm not saying the Raiders are winning this game. The Chiefs should win this game, and they should win this game by a healthy amount. But I do think Las Vegas, they won last week. Granted, it was the Titans, but Ashton Genty has started to get going. If Geno Smith can limit the turnovers, I think the Raiders can go ahead and hang around in this game. Again, I'm not asking them to win it. I'm not even asking them to keep it within 10 points. Don't lose by 14 or more points, and we go ahead and we cash this spread pick. It's a risky one. I get it, but the Chiefs, if you go back, they have not been a very good cover team. They're 2-4 against the spread in the last 6 games versus bottom 10 scoring defenses. Last year, we look in totality last year, the Chiefs 40% cover rate against the spread last year in general. So far this year, 50-50. So they haven't been like this great cover team by any means. And so I think the Raiders can hang around here. So plus 13.5, to me, it's pretty good value here. I get it. A lot of people might fade this pick or just avoid it. I completely understand. But I'm telling you guys, I think the Raiders can hang around here. Not win, but hang around. And then the second pick from this game is the over 44.5, which I'm grabbing again, minus 115 over on Novig. I think the Chiefs, with Rashee Rice back, they're going to go ahead and score some points. So the over has cashed in 67% of their games this year. More specifically, this line in particular, 44.5, has cashed in 67% of their games. For the Raiders, it's been 50-50 in terms of the over under 44.5. So you're getting some pretty decent numbers in terms of the over there. Chiefs offense starting to find a groove. They get Rashee Rice back here. The Raiders defense has not been all that great. I think Kansas City should be able to score a healthy amount of points and win the game. I just think the Raiders offense can go ahead and move the ball a little bit also and score enough points to contribute to this total. This game to me feels like a 27-21 win for the Chiefs, where the Chiefs win the game and they continue their momentum, but I think the Raiders keep it close, yet enough points will be scored to cash the over. So 27-21, that's my prediction for this game. One last stat before we move on to the next pick. 3 of the last 5 matchups between these two teams, this over has cashed. So we've seen some lower scoring games. We've also seen some higher scoring games between these two sides. So I think the over and the Raiders spread, that's the way to go here. You could also tease those, bring the over down to 37.5, make the Raiders plus 19.5 or plus 20.5. You could go ahead and do that as well. Not a bad alternative, but I do think each individual straight bet are worth taking a look at in this game. We're about halfway done with the video, guys. We still have 8 more picks to go, but real quick, I want to talk to you guys about the sponsor of today's video, Novig. Guys, if you have not dabbled into peer-to-peer exchanges, you are absolutely missing out. Using Novig allows you to get unbeatable prices and lines on just about every game. Why? Because it is other users setting the lines, setting the odds. You are competing with other users, not the big books. Peer-to-peer is growing at a crazy rate. You don't want to be late to this. Sign up for Novig today using the link down below in the description, as well as the pinned comment, and you'll get a nice sign-up bonus of up to $50 as well. As you've seen in this video, most of my plays, if not every single play so far, Novig has given me the best lines and the best odds available for these plays. So make sure to go ahead and check it out. One more time, sign up for Novig today using the link in the description as well as the pinned comment, and you'll get a nice sign-up bonus of up to $50 as well. Check it out. It operates just like your normal sports book, but with better lines. Thank you to Novig for sponsoring today's video. And since we're about to hit the 24-minute mark in the video, go ahead and comment 24 down below if you're still watching at this point. As always, guys, we appreciate those who watch through each and every single video here at the channel. It really does mean a lot to us. We put a lot of hard work, a lot of blood, sweat, and not so many tears, but when you lose a big bet, some tears in these videos. So when you do stick around and watch through, it means a lot to us. So comment 24 Kobe down below if you're still riding with me, still watching with me here 24 minutes into this video. All right, guys, continuing on here, we still have our 1 p.m. slate on Sunday here. We got Patriots at Titans. I'm going with the Pats team total over here, 23.5 points. Now, I do like the Patriots straight up. They are minus 6.5 in this game. The reason why I went with team total over versus taking the Patriots straight up minus 6.5 is the fact the Titans did just fire their head coach last week. And sometimes in the NFL, when a team fires their coach, you do see that first, or even the first couple of games post firing the coach, the team kind of rallies around. If the right interim coach takes over, rallies around, and they do play above expectation, at least for a few games, before crashing back down to the team they're supposed to be, which is bad. Sometimes the team gets better, but I just don't think this Titans team is the type. Like you saw like the Raiders with Rich Bisaccia that year. They ended up having a great run. Antonio Pierce kind of the same thing, but more often than not, the interim coach usually has a couple good games, and then it's followed by going back to being a bad team. So being that first game post-firing the coach, new interim coach, taking the Patriots 6.5 points worries me a little bit. I know the Titans are very bad. You also have the Mike Vrabel revenge factor, his first time returning to Tennessee since being fired by the Titans. So I like New England here. I think the team total over 23.5 is the better play. If they win this game, they're going to probably score over this anyways. Minus 135, best odds available over on DraftKings. They've cashed it at a 50% hit rate so far this year, averaging 25 points per game this year. But look at the last 3 games. 42 versus the Panthers. They just missed it by a point versus Buffalo with 23 points, and then had 25 last week versus New Orleans. The Titans defense is not very good, 26th in points allowed. They have a pretty good pass defense, but their run defense has been very bad. They don't really have a great pass rush. With the way the Patriots have played lately, mixed with the fact that it's the Titans team that obviously just not good all around. They just fired their coach for a reason. I think 24 points, you're not asking too much. You do see the 5 games so far for Tennessee. A lot of cashes here, all right? Rams at 33, Colts at 41, Texans at 26. Now, each of the last 2 weeks, teams have cashed the under, okay? Cardinals, 21 points. Raiders, 20 points. Those 2 offenses, the Raiders offense and the Cardinals offense, not really playing the same level the Patriots are. The Patriots are trending upwards. Those teams are kind of trending downwards or just kind of staying neutral. New England trending in the right direction. I think they should go ahead and cash this team total over against a pretty bad Titans team on the road. All right, guys, next up, continuing on with the 1 p.m. slate on Sunday, we have Eagles at Vikings, and I am going with Vikings here on the money line. I'm grabbing that for plus 116 over on Novik. I'm sorry, and I know the Eagles, they are still a good football team. I don't think they're a bad team by any means, but we did see something similar happen with this team last season where, you know, they had a little bit of a rough start. They required them taking that bye week to make those adjustments and kind of go on this crazy run. They don't have the bye week yet. It's not here yet. And I do think with the Eagles, they have the components and the pieces to fix their problems. I'm just not sure if this is the game. They're going to go ahead and do that. The Vikings coming off a bye week, so extra rest. They have one of the best defenses in the NFL. They're going to put a lot of pressure on Jalen Hurts and this Eagles offense. And although I have some question marks with, you know, the offense with Carson Wentz for the Vikings, the Eagles defense right now looks all out of sorts. And obviously Carson Wentz going up against the Eagles, you do have a little bit of extra motivation for Wentz to go up against his former team and beat them. Look, it's going to be a tight game here. I think the Eagles still have a great roster. They can go ahead and get it back together, but I don't know. You don't just lose 2 games like they did and just flip a switch and come back. They clearly have some issues right now they need to figure out. The Broncos loss, I can excuse a bit. It's the Broncos. They have a really strong defense. They're a good team. The Giants loss, however, was really baffling. Their defense could not stop Jackson Dart and that team. The offensively, the Eagles were a mess in that one. So I just don't think this is a good bounce back spot. Now, they do have a couple extra days off because they last played on Thursday night against the Giants. But the Vikings had the bye week, so they not only had more time off, they also haven't played a game in a while. So I think Minnesota in this spot should be able to go ahead and win. And the Eagles have been very good as favorites, as you can see down below. They won 17 of their last 20 games as favorites. But this Minnesota team is pretty damn good. Their defense, obviously, we know it's good. And offensively, I think they can be good enough to go ahead and win this game. So Vikings money line is a good value play. It's a coin flip game. And in that situation, taking the good plus money value there with Minnesota in that spot. All right, guys, we're now moving into the 4 o'clock window on Sunday here. We have Colts Chargers, 4:05 p.m. kickoff to be exact. And going with a pick here that some people might not totally agree with, but I'm going with the Colts here on the spread, plus 1.5. Now, I don't hate Colts money line either, but considering the odds, I'll go ahead and take the points, plus 1.5 which are minus 100 over on Novig, so even odds. Pretty good value for Colts plus 1.5. And this is simply fading a team that really isn't in great form right now for a team that is in good form right now. Let me go ahead and specify what I'm talking about here. The Chargers have been on basically a month-long struggle bus. Okay, now two of those 4 games they did win. Broncos, okay, they beat them 23-20 at home back on September 21st. However, if you watch that game, a bit of a struggle for the Chargers. The Broncos came back. They were leading for a while. Chargers did come from behind and win that game. But that Broncos win was sort of the beginning of this month-long journey of the Chargers between injuries and other components, mainly injuries, having a hard time winning games a lot really. They barely hung on versus the Broncos. They got beat by the Giants. They got whooped by the Commanders. And then last week, you remember last week, I gave you alternate lines. The Chargers are going to bounce back and beat the Dolphins. That Dolphins team, where you have a quarterback calling out his teammates and whatnot, came out and they barely survived with the last-second field goal and won that game 29-27. This Chargers team is struggling. Now, again, it's not entirely their fault. They're not a bad football team. It's just the injuries. You just can't overcome all the injuries they have, specifically on the offensive side of the football. Joel, at the time of recording, still questionable. Huge, considering they obviously don't have Rashawn Slater, their offensive line. A lot of injury. They already lost Najee Harris, which was tough at running back, and now they lose rookie Amari Hampton. So they're very thin, very banged up at running back. They've got injuries in the offensive line. Quentin Johnston right now is injured with a little bit of a hamstring thing. He is participating in practices, but obviously a little bit limited right now with a hamstring injury. Just a lot of injuries piling up here for this Chargers team, which is not good, and it's affected the offense in a negative way. They have not played a complete start-to-finish dominant good game since week 2 against the Raiders. And again, I'm not saying everything's been bad. They did have some good moments versus the Dolphins, versus the Broncos, and they won both those games, obviously. But this is a Chargers team that's struggling a little bit right now versus a Colts team where they've been very good. Their only loss this year was against a Rams team that had a Donnie Mitchell not fumble the ball just short of the goal line. Who knows? Maybe the Rams still win the game, but Colts definitely would have had it closer and could have actually won that game outright. So they're a mistake or two in that Rams game away from being 6-0 coming into this spot. Now, the Cardinals gave them a little bit of a scare last week, but I don't think they were expecting Jacoby Brissett to make the offense for Arizona look as good as it did. Colts have been dominant. They've won a lot of games by blowouts. They've also won some tight games. They beat Denver, obviously, close in that spot. They can win the close ones. They can win the big ones. Chargers, I feel like they're struggling right now. They're a team in not as great a form. You give me Colts at plus 1.5 here, so they can still lose the game. Just keep it within a point, and we're good to go. I think the Colts win the game outright, so money line, not a bad play if you're thinking about money line. This one obviously a bit safer. In the event it's a narrow victory. It's just hard for me to back the Chargers right now, considering the state of their offense with all these injuries. They have some things to clearly figure out first before we can confidently tail them. Colts look really good. I think I'm ready. I mean, I don't think they're going to be a Super Bowl threat, but this team is legitimately good. This is not the Saints from last year with Derek Carr, where they went 2-0 to kick off the season. This Colts team's actually confirmed legit good, and they can beat the Chargers here in LA. So I like the Colts here, plus 1.5 on the spread. All right, guys, next up, another 4:05 p.m. kickoff here. We have Giants at Broncos. Going with the under in this spot, 40.5, which I'm grabbing for minus 107. Best odds available to me over on Novig. And look, I mean, this is a game where the Broncos defense, I think, is very, very good. The Giants have been a fun story. They've had a couple of really good back-to-back wins, or 2 of their last 3 games, I should say, some pretty big wins. They beat the Chargers. They beat the Eagles. A little extended rest here coming off that Thursday Night Football win over the Eagles, so they get a nice little break coming into this game against Denver. Denver, obviously, a bit of a disadvantage here coming from overseas, now immediately coming home to play the Giants, a team that's been hot, and obviously the public loves them right now. Ultimately, I think Denver's defense will be able to slow this Giants offense down. I don't think the Giants are going to go ahead and score 34 points against this Denver defense. Second best scoring defense, most efficient in the red zone. We can go through all the numbers all day long, but they are pretty much top 10 in every single category and top 3 in most. This is the best defense in the NFL, in my opinion. I don't think the Giants, as good as the run game has been with Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo, I just don't see the Giants scoring many points in this spot. On the flip side, I actually do think Denver's offense could score, because I do think, although the Giants' strength's been their pass rush, the Broncos have had one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. And according to PFF, they have the #1 pass blocking grade in the league through 6 weeks. So this is a very good offensive line. That being said, coming from overseas, you're going to have that travel factor here, jet lag. They have a longer distance coming from Denver, Colorado to Europe. Obviously, longer travel, tougher travel. You know, their offense has not been consistently good all year long. I mean, you look at their season, the most points, they've scored 28 points versus the Bengals, 28 versus the Colts. They only scored 13 versus a pretty bad Jets team. This has not been a consistent offense. Both of these teams, the unders have been hitting at a high rate. Both these teams have a 67% hit rate for this under 40.5. I think the under is the right play here. Picking a side is a little bit tough because the spread's 7.5 points. I do lean Giants in that spot, but the Giants are such a public play, it scares me. So I think the under is the way to go here. I don't think Denver scores many points. I definitely don't think the Giants score many points here. So under 40.5, minus 107. Good value on the under too. All right, next up, guys, 4:25 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. We have Commanders at Cowboys. And if you watch HJs this week, which, by the way, if you haven't watched H2H, it's the NFL pick show that myself and Ev do every single week. Go ahead and check that out. Our Week 7 video is already up on the channel. The Cowboys, this game, this pick, obviously was a big talking point in that video. And just like in that video, I'm backing the Dallas Cowboys here. Now, in that video, I took Cowboys on the money line. Kind of similar strategy to the Colts game. I'm taking the points here, Dallas plus 1.5, which I'm grabbing for minus 104 over on Novig. I think Cowboys are going to win the game outright, but taking the plus 1.5, taking the points here just in case. I mean, the Commanders literally lost by 1 last week. So these 1-point games, they do happen. They are possible. So taking the 1.5 points to me is a bit smarter from a value standpoint. It's a coin flip game. The Cowboys have won 3 of the last 5 matchups with the Commanders. They did split last season. The first game, which was in Washington, Dallas won 34-26. The second meeting, Washington won 23-19. But they were both closer. Well, I guess the second game was closer. I just think, look, we know we don't have to talk about it too much. We know the Cowboys defense is very, very bad. We know this. It's very commonly known. But offensively, they're one of the best offenses in the NFL. Specifically, their passing offense is really, really good. I have question marks with the Commanders' defense. Now, from a scoring perspective, not terrible, but 23rd in passing yards allowed per game, 20th in rushing yards allowed, tied for 23rd in yards per play. They don't really force a lot of turnovers. I think Dallas's offense could go ahead and score some points in this spot. I like it a lot for Dallas. I think it's a coin flip game. I think their offense is good enough where despite how bad their defense is, their offense can keep them in pretty much every single game they play this year. As long as they show up here. Again, the Cowboys have kind of been the dominant team in this rivalry of late. The games, even when Washington has won, again, 23-19, it was a 4-point win. The last big win for Washington was January of 2023. January 8th, 2023 was 26-6. The Commanders won. But besides that, Dallas is either blown this game out or lost very narrowly. So I think Dallas plus 1.5 is a good spot. I think coming off that loss last week, I expect a bounce back in Jerry World for the Cowboys. Commanders also on short rest, after that Monday Night Football loss to Chicago. So, and again, Commanders, they have a couple good wins. They also have some pretty bad losses on there. So I don't really know what to make of this team yet. And there's been a bit of regression. They're 3-6 against the spread in the last 9 road games. I think Dallas can go ahead and win this game in a shootout in Jerry World. All right, guys, 3 picks left here in today's video. Next up, we have another 4:25 p.m. kickoff. We have Packers at Cardinals. I'm going Green Bay here, minus 6.5 on the spread, which I'm grabbing for minus 110. Over on BetMGM, you got a lot of different options for tailing this play. Look, admittedly, I don't like Arizona right now. I know they did give a pretty good fight, and I did pick them last week to cover the spread against the Colts, which was a good play on my part. But Green Bay, they have some questions on offense, but I do think this is a good spot for them. Arizona just cannot hang. Kyler Murray obviously is banged up here. Looking at the injury report, actually, I'm not sure what Kyler's situation is here, if he's playing. We know, obviously, they're without James Conner. Whether it's Murray or Jacoby Brissett, I don't really like them either way. Let's see here. Questionable. It's up in the air right now, but honestly, whether it be a banged-up Kyler Murray or Jacoby Brissett, I think Green Bay should go ahead and win this game. Defensively, we know this team's pretty good. We know their pass rush is pretty potent. This Cardinals offensive line has not been great. Bottom 10 in terms of sacks allowed per game. They've been a decent run team, but the Packers have a pretty good run defense. And the Cardinals defense, not very good. 17th against the run. Packers, wrong side here. But the numbers don't matter. Even on the flip side here, Packers best run defense in the NFL. Cardinals 17th in rushing offense. Cardinals bottom 10 passing team. Really good run team. The pass rush is pretty solid. Cardinals offensive line has been a mess. A lot of the points I made are still relevant here. But if we flip back to this screen, you do see the Packers top 10 passing offense. Cardinals bottom 5 passing defense. Cardinals pass rush, not great. I think Green Bay is a better team. I think they should go ahead and whoop this Cardinals team here in this spot. Arizona, I think Jonathan Gannon's going to be losing his job pretty soon over there in Arizona. So Packers minus 6.5 for minus 110. good value and an easy pick in my opinion. All right, guys, our final 2 picks in today's video. We have 2 more Monday Night Football plays here. We have the first one, Buccaneers at Lions, 7 p.m. kickoff on Monday. I'm going to try -5.5, and I might sound crazy because I keep fading the Buccaneers consistently, waiting for them to drop a game. And Baker Mayfield and that Bucs team, they just keep winning. They just keep bringing out that Baker Maker magic. I just think Detroit, coming off that Sunday Night Football loss, it's kind of the perfect spot. The public's going to be way off Detroit after that Chiefs loss. They're obviously heavy on the Bucs here because the Bucs keep winning football games despite their injury. But I do think that Detroit will go ahead and win in this spot. -105 over on ESPN Bet. The Bucs are coming off their best win of the season. They actually beat the Niners by a healthy amount in that game. I just think the Bucs defense is going to have a hard time matching up with this Lions offense. And I know Detroit offensively, they kind of were a letdown last week versus the Chiefs. I think there's a big bounce back spot for them. The Bucs have to lose eventually. I think this is one good spot here for them to lose. I'm not a hater. I love Tampa. I really am appreciative of what they've been able to do this year, but I do think the injuries at some point are going to affect them, and this is one of those spots where Detroit, they are a loaded offense. Defensively, they're just good enough to at least put a little bit of pressure on Baker and hopefully slow their offense down a tad bit. But even in the event this game is a shootout, and the over honestly might not be a bad pick here, I think Detroit's offense really loaded, and they have their own injuries to take care of, but I just like Detroit in this spot. So -5.5. They're -105, just kind of fading the ultimate public play here in the Buccaneers. And don't believe me, 77% of the public is betting the Buccaneers spread in this spot. So the public loves Tampa Bay, understandably so, but I do think the Lions are going to go ahead and shock some people here. So big game for Detroit here, -5.5. All right, guys, in our 15th and final pick in today's video, we have Texans at Seahawks, the second Monday Night Football game, 10 p.m. kickoff. We got Texans spread here, +3.5. Which I'm grabbing for -118 over on FanDuel. This is a tough one because I do really like Seattle in this spot, but Houston coming off the bye week, they were trending in the right direction here going into the bye week. Obviously, they smoked the Titans for their first win of the year, and then they go ahead and smoke the Ravens too. Now, granted, 1-5 Ravens, 1-5 Titans, not exactly the most impressive wins for Houston. But to be fair to them, they lost by 5 points to the 4-2 Rams, 1 point to the 5-1 Buccaneers, and 7 points to the 4-2 Jaguars. Maybe we're a little bit harsh on this Texans team, but they had a pretty rough start to the year in terms of scheduling. I don't know. They were trending in the right direction. Now they're coming off the bye week. They had some time to make some adjustments. Seattle 2-8 against the spread in their last 10 games at home. They've had a pretty rough stretch the last couple weeks, playing Tampa and then Jacksonville, although a big win over the Jaguars last week. I think Houston's defense is going to give problems for Sam Darnold. We talked about this. One of the things with Sam Darnold is that in order to, you got to make him uncomfortable. What happened at the end of last season? Minnesota had some injuries on the offensive line, and they played some teams with a pass rush that could put some pressure on him, and that Vikings offensive line could not handle it. And by extension, Sam Darnold couldn't handle it. So Sam Darnold really struggled at the end of last year. This year, kind of the same story, honestly. Now, their offensive line has played a lot better than I thought they would. Not giving up a lot of sacks, not giving up a lot of QB hits. Pretty good. But this Houston defense is very dominant. I know the pass rush numbers have not been great for them, but they do have a dominant pass rush, a really good run defense, a really good pass defense. Across the board, really good numbers. I think Seattle's offense, which has exceeded all my expectations, could struggle a bit in this spot here. And the key thing to think about here is the Houston's offense against Seattle's defense. Seattle also a very good team defensively, very good pass rush, a lot of great stuff. And obviously the Texans have their own offensive line issues to worry about, protecting CJ Stroud. The under, honestly, is not a bad play here. I actually do really like the under in this spot. But the Texans do have a path. The Seahawks pass defense, although it's been getting a little bit better at times, has been a little shaky this year. That's where Houston can go ahead and attack. And their passing offense has improved over the last several weeks. So it's going to be a tight game. And because I think it's going to be a tight game, that's why I think +3.5 is important here. If it's 2.5 points, I might lean a little bit more towards Seattle in this spot. But at +3.5, I think this is going to be a field goal game. And in that situation, +3.5 for Houston seems like the right play. So Texans +3.5, good solid final play to end today's video. Guys, that is it for me today. Thank you very much, as always, for watching. One more time, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. Again, part 2 of the Oracle will be out some point this week. I'm not sure if it'll be later today, tomorrow, Saturday, but some point before Sunday, we'll have part 2 where we cover parlays and teasers out. Make sure to tune in. We have a ton of other NFL content, as well as our NFL player prop live show Sunday morning, so make sure to tune in for that. Until then, guys, hope you're all winners. Enjoy your week. Let's go ahead and make some money.